They called her Gloriana, the Virgin Queen, the last Tudor monarch. She ruled with intellect, strategy, and unmatched political finesse, defying kings, popes, and her own council. Elizabeth I was more than a queen. She was a symbol, a myth, a woman whose legend outgrew even her death. But beneath the silks and speeches, beneath the golden crown and the divine imagery, Elizabeth was flesh. And when that flesh failed her, when death finally arrived, it did not come with dignity. It came with bloat, blackness, and stench. A rot so powerful, it echoed through history. Now, more than 400 years later, her coffin lies sealed under stone, deep in Westminster Abbey. But recent discoveries in modern science have begun to uncover what lies inside and what continues to decay in darkness. This is the story of a queen, a coffin, and the putrefying truth hidden beneath a crown. The year was 1603. Queen Elizabeth I had ruled England for 44 years. She was 69 years old, unmarried, childless, and weary. She had lost close friends, including her lifelong confidant, Robert Dudley. Political alliances frayed. The weight of the crown pressed heavier on her frail shoulders. In the final weeks of her life, Elizabeth became restless. She refused to sleep in her bed, instead, standing for hours, refusing food and comfort. She seemed haunted, murmuring to figures only she could see. Her physicians, baffled and cautious, dared not interfere. On March 24th, after days of silence and increasing frailty, she collapsed into her bed. Without ceremony, she slipped into unconsciousness and died shortly after. In the cold and candlelit chamber of Richmond Palace, Elizabeth's death set off a crisis. Who would succeed her? How would England react? In the confusion, her body was left untouched for days. She was not embalmed. No preservatives were used. The corpse, swaddled in fine fabrics and royal robes, began to break down. Witnesses described her face blackening, her lips shriveled, her abdomen distended as gases of decomposition formed. One lady-in-waiting reportedly wept and covered her nose with a perfumed cloth, unable to bear the stench. Maggots were seen around her nostrils. The queen of an empire had begun to burst. The court acted fast. A coffin was brought in, heavy, lined with lead, designed not for reverence, but for containment. The body, too unstable to move, was gently lifted and laid within. No washing, no rites. The stench was unbearable. The coffin was sealed shut, trapping inside it the full force of royal decomposition. Even today, scientists confirm that such coffins create a high-pressure environment. Inside, gases continue to build. Moisture and mold flourish. And over time, what lies within becomes a toxic ecosystem of human rot. Elizabeth died on March 24th, but her funeral was not held until April 28th, over 5 weeks later. Officially, the delay was blamed on political transition. James VI of Scotland had to be informed and crowned James I of England. The court needed time to organize the grand event, but behind the scenes, whispers grew. Some claimed the body was unstable, that the coffin had begun to leak fluid, that the stench could not be masked. The great funeral procession was held in silence. Elizabeth was praised in speech, but none dared open the coffin. She was buried, still bloating, still decomposing. In Westminster Abbey, Elizabeth was interred. Her coffin was placed atop that of her half-sister, Mary I, a Catholic Queen Elizabeth had imprisoned. To some, this was poetic, to others, sacrilegious. A Protestant icon buried over a Catholic martyr. The stone was sealed, heavy and deliberate, locking away not just a body, but an era. The tomb became sacred ground, a monument to one of history's most powerful monarchs. But silence did not reign. Within the abbey's hallowed crypts, whispers stirred. A faint stench seeped through the stone. The air turned colder near her vault. It was as if her legacy, like her body, refused to lie still. The silence was broken, not by noise, but by presence. Over the centuries, Abbey staff recorded odd occurrences, a persistent foul smell, candles that flickered or burned green, walls that wept moisture. One 17th-century monk wrote, "The lady's tomb breathes foul air. We burn incense daily." Even in the 1800s, engineers reported illness after working near her tomb. Was it mold? Was it death? Or something more? In such coffins, decomposition creates a deadly brew of gases. Methane, ammonia, sulfur compounds. Over time, these build pressure. In Elizabeth's case, experts believe her coffin may have expanded slightly. There are structural irregularities in the stone above her grave. Did her body break through the inner lining? Did the gases escape? We may never know unless it is opened. In recent decades, forensic teams requested access to study Elizabeth's coffin using non-invasive scans. They hoped to learn about royal embalming practices and decomposition in early modern Europe. What they found shocked them: strange hotspots inside the coffin, possibly gas or liquid, and a strange marking, almost carved, within the inner lid. Was it a royal sigil, a secret symbol? The Abbey refused further scans. Inside the coffin, mold thrives. One strain discovered in a nearby tomb, Aspergillus elizabetha, was named in her honor. It's rare, aggressive, and deadly to inhale. Could opening her coffin kill someone? Possibly. That's why the Abbey forbids it. But curiosity remains. Elizabeth was buried in her robes of state, a velvet gown, lace ruff, possibly even her coronation jewels. But after weeks of rot, those fabrics would have absorbed everything. Modern cases show that clothing becomes fused to decomposing flesh. In her case, the dress may still cling to her skeletal form, soaked in royal fluids, bound by mold. During imaging, some experts noted anomalies in the skull shape. The jaw was longer, the eye sockets wider. Could it be a deformity? Or proof of the legendary Bisley boy, the theory that Elizabeth died young and was replaced by a boy in disguise? DNA testing could confirm it, but the coffin remains closed. Elizabeth never named an heir. Some claimed she had no right to, that she was illegitimate. Inside her coffin lies DNA that could settle centuries of debate. Was she truly an invalid daughter, or was England ruled by a fraud? Mary I died believing Elizabeth stole her throne. In Catholic legend, Mary cursed her half-sister. Some say that curse lives on, that Elizabeth's soul cannot rest because she was buried atop a woman she betrayed, and that the stench is Mary's revenge. Multiple workers in the 19th century reported hearing whispers near Elizabeth's vault. One claimed he heard her voice, "I am not done." Others felt watched. A few refused to return. A flood in 1834 reached Elizabeth's tomb. When masons opened the vault to inspect damage, they fled in horror. One wrote, "The stench was not of death, it was of death unending." Was the seal broken? Did something escape? A scholar who visited the tomb entrance in 1999 soon fell ill. He claimed to see Elizabeth's face in a dream. Mouth open in a scream, he abandoned his work and never published again. Beneath Elizabeth's tomb, a hidden line carved into stone, Qui coronam furitus est, in nocte fectit. She who stole the crown shall rot in the night. No record shows when it was made or by whom. Night guards report odd sounds. Footsteps, a woman weeping. Some believe it's just old stones shifting. Others are not so sure. Science begs for answers. Religion demands reverence. If we open it, we could rewrite history. But we might also unleash something unknowable. Is it wise, ethical, even to let scientific hunger pry open the silence of the grave? Elizabeth's coffin does not merely hold bones and dust, it holds centuries of reverence, fear, legend, and rot. To disturb her rest might yield answers history has craved, truths of her bloodline, her body, her secrets. But at what cost? Could such an act shatter sacred ground? Could it expose us not only to toxic mold and gases but to the symbolic decay of monarchy, of myth, of a woman transformed into relic? The question echoes louder than ever. Is our pursuit of knowledge so relentless that we would unseal centuries of decay just to satisfy our doubt? Elizabeth I remains entombed in a paradox of power and putrefaction, laid to rest in a lavish crypt beneath the grandeur of Westminster Abbey, yet wrapped in the irreversible rot of human decay. The same woman who once dazzled Europe in pearls, in velvet, now lies sealed in darkness, her flesh long dissolved, her royal robes soaked in death's residue. Beneath her effigy of marble and gold, she does not rest in pristine peace, but in a leaden box thick with stench, a vessel of glory and grotesque finality. Her legacy is legend. Her body, perhaps something else. She ruled an empire, now she rules in rot, fade to black. Queen Elizabeth I's story did not end with her death. In truth, it deepened. For most monarchs, legacy is found in policy and war, in monuments and archives. But for Elizabeth, the final chapter may be written in flesh decaying, sealed away, hidden beneath centuries of stone and reverence. Her coffin is more than a container of bone. It is a riddle box, locked by time and taboo. The fascination surrounding her decomposing corpse may seem morbid, but beneath the surface lies something more primal, the human obsession with truth, with the reality behind legends. We sculpt statues, paint portraits, and pen tributes to our leaders, but what becomes of their actual bodies? What truths lie beneath the velvet and marble? Elizabeth's tomb captures the very heart of this question. It is a fusion of science, history, mythology, and spiritual fear. There is the forensic curiosity. What can her remains tell us about 16th century health, embalming, or diseases? There is the political puzzle. Could DNA confirm once and for all that she was indeed the daughter of Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII, or debunk the centuries-old rumors of a hidden identity? And then there is the moral weight. Should the dead, even monarchs, be disturbed in the pursuit of knowledge? The Tudor period has always inspired obsession. It was an age of contradiction, splendor and savagery, chivalry and cruelty, innovation and ignorance. And at the center of this whirlwind stood Elizabeth. Her rule reshaped England. Her image, carefully curated, still decorates mugs, museums, and memory. But it is only an image. The real woman, stripped of pearls, stripped of power, lies unrecognizably, forgotten in form but immortal in narrative. The reality of death, especially royal death, is rarely spoken aloud. We enshrine kings and queens in grand tombs, but what lies within is different than any peasant grave. Decay, smell, liquefaction. We do not like to imagine our icons rotting, but they do. That is why Elizabeth's stinking coffin continues to haunt the imagination. It forces us to confront the contradiction. How can someone so powerful, so untouchable, still be reduced to sludge and gas? And perhaps it is the answer. Perhaps the coffin matters not because of the secrets it holds, but because of the truth it represents, that even Gloriana rotted, that all power ends in dust. There is also something deeply symbolic about the coffin being stacked atop that of Mary the first 4 decades. The two sisters represented opposing poles of English identity, Catholic and Protestant, tradition and reform, fire and ice. In life, they struggled for supremacy. In death, they were fused together, one body pressing eternally upon the other. The stories of curses, of whispers in the abbey, of guards falling ill, these speak not only to superstition, but to our inherited unease. Perhaps, somewhere in the folds of culture and belief, we understand that there are things we are not meant to uncover, that the past, especially when sealed in lead and prayer, demands caution, yet science pushes forward. Always. Ground penetrating radar and thermographic scans, microscopic mold analysis, and DNA sequencing all have been suggested to penetrate the mystery of Elizabeth's grave, yet none have been granted full access. The Church holds firm, this is sacred ground. To open it would be an act of desecration. The question is no longer technical, it is philosophical. Would opening the coffin truly teach us more than it takes away? If we knew what she looked like in death, if we saw her skull, her bones, her stained dress, would we understand Elizabeth better? Or would we simply tarnish the mystery that has survived for centuries? There are other implications too. Monarchs are symbols. If we open Elizabeth's tomb, would we not be tempted to open Henry VIII's or Victoria's? Or even more recent, royals? The slope is steep, the precedent irreversible, but curiosity does not fade. In fact, it only grows stronger when denied. Elizabeth's life was about control. She managed her image with more skill than any ruler of her time. She chose not to marry. She manipulated suitors and nations alike. She presented herself as ageless, virtuous, chosen by God, but her death unraveled that image in minutes. As her body swelled, cracked, and leaked, the illusion shattered. In the end, she was not divine. She was human. And that, perhaps, is the most honest legacy of all, because in truth, Elizabeth's rot teaches us something essential: that history is not clean, that greatness coexists with filth, that the foundations of empires are built not only on glory, but on decomposition. Bones beneath the throne, whether the coffin is ever opened or not, may be beside the point. Because the myth has already escaped, through books, whispers, documentaries, and now through digital eyes and curious minds around the world. The stinking coffin of Elizabeth I has become more than a container of remains. It is now a metaphor, a final, grotesque reminder of mortality, of legacy, of the inescapable end that waits even for queens. She ruled with fire, she ruled with fear, she ruled with genius, and now she rules in rot.